Imagine you lock your front door for the night, you turn the deadbolt, you hear that heavy, that metallic click, and your brain instantly signals one word: safe.
Right, you were locked in.
Exactly. It's a clean, simple line of defense. But I mean, what if that click didn't lock the danger out? What if it actually locked you inside with it?
Oh, that's a terrifying thought.
Right. Suddenly the real threat isn't, whatever is lurking beyond the driveway. It's the psychological pressure cooker of the house itself. So today, we are taking a deep dive into an exclusive variety interview featuring the acclaimed French director, Louis Leterrier, and the brilliant actor, Wagner Moura.
It's such a fantastic interview, really.
It totally is. We're looking at their new Netflix sci-fi horror film, The Last House, which drops for you all on August 7th. Okay, let's unpack this, because the mission for our deep dive today is to really explore how Leterrier and Moura took the very real, universal trauma of the global lockdown.
Which we all remember very well.
Oh, painfully well. And they morphed it into this terrifying sort of 80s and 90s style cinematic exploration of family dynamics and emotional survival.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly rich piece of source material.
Yeah.
I mean, we rarely get this kind of transparent look into the mechanics of how artists process a global trauma, and engineer it into a piece of entertainment. This isn't just a behind-the-scenes look at a movie. It's really a psychological study of isolation.
Absolutely. And just to set the stage for you, the listener, The Last House follows a suburban family of 4. You have the father, Jason, played by Wagner Moura, and the mother, Anne, played by Greta Lee. And out of nowhere, they find themselves entirely sealed inside their home by this mysterious, unexplained presence.
Which is just, the anxiety of that alone.
Oh, yeah. They have absolutely zero understanding of what is happening outside their walls. And honestly, what's worse is they have no idea how long this isolation is going to last.
Exactly. The uncertainty is the engine of the entire narrative here. And what's fascinating here is the evolution of the script itself.
Right.
Because according to our sources, the genesis of this project happened right in the thick of our own real-world lockdowns. The writer, Matthew Robinson, he penned the first act of the script literally during the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah. But when Louis Leterrier signed on, he realized they needed to push the narrative much deeper. He looked at the scripts circulating at the time, and most were heavily focused on, the logistics of physical survival.
Just getting by day to day.
Right. But Leterrier wanted to pivot to the much more complex, invisible terrain of psychological survival.
I have to admit, when I first read about this, part of me wondered, do we really need another pandemic-inspired story?
Yeah, pandemic fatigue is very real.
It is. I think a lot of us are still dealing with the fatigue of that era, honestly. But the way they are framing this, it actually makes a lot of sense. It reminds me less of a traditional haunted house story and more of a submarine crew.
A submarine crew. Wait, how so?
Well, think about it. When you are on a submarine, the physical pressure from the ocean outside is lethal, right? You have to keep the water out, obviously. That's the physical survival part.
Right, structural integrity.
Exactly. But if you have a single internal emotional leak, if the crew turns on each other because of the claustrophobia, that submarine sinks just as fast from the inside.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. In the early days of COVID, we were all hyper-focused on the outside pressure. We wiped down groceries, we hoarded supplies, we tracked the virus. But eventually, the real monster wasn't just the pathogen, right? It was the psychological toll of being trapped with our own thoughts.
That submarine analogy is perfectly aligned with what the filmmakers are doing here. What's fascinating here is how they use the sci-fi horror genre to process that exact internal leak you were talking about.
Right, by dressing it up in sci-fi.
Exactly. By taking a nonfiction trauma like the lockdowns and packaging it inside the nostalgic heightened tropes of an 80s or 90s thriller, they are offering the audience a psychological safety net.
A safety net, I like that.
It's much easier to confront the terrifying reality of your own family dysfunctions or, your fear of isolation when the literal threat on screen is a mysterious alien presence. The genre provides a safe distance.
And that safe distance really allows them to explore some raw contradictions, because in the variety piece, Wagner Moura talks about how his own real-life lockdown experience perfectly mirrored the duality of his character, Jason.
Yeah, that part was incredibly striking.
It really was. He's from Brazil, and he talked about how the pandemic was an absolute devastating tragedy for his home country. The macro-level horror happening outside his doors was undeniable.
Right, the loss of life, the societal breakdown, it was an intense external threat.
Exactly. But at the exact same time, inside the four walls of his house, he was experiencing something profoundly beautiful.
Yeah.
He mentioned that he had never spent so much continuous, uninterrupted time with his family. He finally had the opportunity to just sit and really look at his sons, to truly be present with his wife.
And such a stark contrast.
It is. It was this uniquely intimate period, completely insulated from the devastation outside. It's just a jarring contrast to hold in your mind the horror outside the door and the profound love inside the room.
And holding those two opposing truths at the same time, I mean, that requires a massive amount of mental energy. It clearly informs his performance.
Yeah, 100%.
But there's an irony to this intense isolation they are depicting, because the way Leterrier and Moura actually met to make this film is the exact opposite of isolation.
Oh my gosh,
Well, it's
yeah.
a perfect example of the kind of random, chaotic, serendipitous human connection we completely lost during the lockdown.
This might be my favorite detail from the entire interview. I mean, you have Louis Leterrier, a major French director who has worked on massive blockbusters and knows literally everyone in Hollywood, and he's standing in line at this gimmicky neighborhood restaurant near where Moura lives.
Yeah, the sushi place.
Right. It's a place where literal robots serve you sushi and drinks.
It is a highly absurd, surreal setting for a career-defining professional meeting.
Completely absurd. Leterrier spots Moura in the crowd and is totally starstruck. His wife even calls him out, basically saying, why are you acting so weird? You work with massive movie stars all the time.
Which is so funny.
Right, but Leterrier just walks right up to him, dodging these sushi-serving robots, and asks him to breakfast. And at that breakfast, the connection was instant. They talked about the movie, they talked about life, and Moura realized immediately he wanted to work with him.
It proves a crucial point about the creative process, really. You can engineer the most highly structured production schedule in Hollywood, but sometimes the most profound artistic collaborations start because two people just happen to bump into each other in a bizarre environment.
Yeah, exactly.
That randomness, that friction of the outside world, is exactly what the characters in The Last House are abruptly denying.
Which bridges us perfectly to the core tension of the movie. Because once you remove that outside world, once you take a family and you seal them in a vacuum, it forces the parents into an impossible corner.
Yeah, it really does.
According to the interview, Jason and Anne's immediate primal instinct when they are trapped is to build a bubble. They want to curate reality to protect their kids from the ugly, painful truth of their situation.
Well, it is a deeply ingrained psychological reflex for parents facing extreme duress. You attempt to manufacture a false sense of normalcy.
But, you know, I have to play devil's advocate here. In the interview, Leterrier criticizes this. He says kids are too instinctive to be fooled, and you can't build a perfect bubble.
Right, he was pretty adamant about that.
Yeah, but isn't judging parents for this a bit of hindsight bias? I mean, think back to the early days of COVID when timelines were totally unknown. What else are parents supposed to do?
That's a fair point.
If you don't build that bubble, aren't you just inducing pure panic in a 6-year-old? You can't just look at a kid and say, the world is ending and we might die in here.
No, you are absolutely right that the instinct is born out of love and a desire to shield. But the psychological reality and what the film explores is that the execution of that bubble often causes more damage than the truth.
How?
Well, children are incredibly perceptive to nonverbal cues. They can read the tension in a room, the whispered conversations, the forced smiles. When parents try to hide a massive problem, kids don't feel safe. They feel gaslit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They know something is deeply wrong, but they are suddenly entirely alone with their fear because the adults are refusing to acknowledge it.
So what does this all mean for the traditional archetype of the protector parent? Because we hold up the stoic, shielding adult as the ultimate ideal in our culture.
We really do.
But looking at how this plays out for Jason, you have to wonder if building that parental bubble isn't actually a form of adult arrogance. It's this massive assumption that we always know what is best for another human being. And by shutting the kids out of the reality of their own lives, we isolate them further.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you've just diagnosed Jason's fatal flaw. He embodies the toxic endpoint of the protector archetype.
Right.
Jason becomes so utterly obsessed with the logistics of survival, feeding his family, securing the perimeter, guarding the doors, that he goes completely blind to their emotional reality. The interview explicitly notes that his daughter is trying to communicate something vital to him from the very beginning of the film.
And he just brushes her off.
He ignores her entirely. He is too busy playing the role of the savior to actually listen to the person he is trying to save.
That's rough.
It is, but focusing purely on logistics, inventorying the pantry, fortifying the house is a very common psychological coping mechanism for adults who suddenly realize they have zero control over the macro environment. If you cannot control the monster outside, you obsessively control the environment inside.
The tragedy there is just palpable, because by trying so desperately to be the protector, he becomes an alienator. Wagner Moura shared a staggering insight about this dynamic in the interview.
What was that?
He realized, through playing Jason, that in order to truly take care of someone, you have to allow them to take care of you in return. Caregiving isn't a one-way street where you just bestow protection onto someone else. It requires vulnerability.
It requires an emotional exchange.
Exactly.
But Jason refuses to participate in that exchange. He will not let his wife or his children share the emotional burden. He tries to bear the entire weight of this supernatural isolation on his own shoulders.
And that's just not sustainable.
No, mechanically speaking, when a structure takes on that much pressure without a release valve, it doesn't just bend, it snaps.
And that snap leads us to what the creators describe as the most harrowing sequence in the entire movie, the garage scene. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we need to talk about the absolute brutality of how Louis Leterrier actually captured this breakdown on film.
The garage scene is the pivotal moment where Jason's mind finally fractures. And a garage is such a fascinating symbolic space for this to happen.
Why the garage specifically?
Think about the architecture of a suburban home. The garage is a liminal space. It is the threshold between the sanctuary of the living room and the wildness of the outside world.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. It's where you store the vehicle that is supposed to facilitate your escape. So for Jason to lose his mind in the very space designed for departure while trapped inside is incredibly poetic.
Wow. Yeah.
And the scene itself sounds technically agonizing. It involves driving and repeatedly crashing a car inside the enclosed garage, coupled with a highly demanding sequence involving water.
And they didn't fake the physical toll of this either. I mean, the interview details just how far Wagner Moura and Greta Lee were pushed. We are talking about extreme weight loss to accurately portray starvation.
Yeah, that's intense.
Then having to gain the weight back for flashbacks, then losing it again. They literally appeared to age on camera as the shoot dragged on.
And crucially, they refused the standard Hollywood comforts. They could have yelled, "Cut!" jumped into an air-conditioned town car, and gone back to a luxury hotel to decompress every night.
Right, to just escape it all. But they stayed deeply in character. They essentially locked themselves into a state of psychological breakdown just to capture a performance. I have to ask myself, and you listening right now, could you endure that? Could you subject yourself to that level of artistic suffering, just blurring the lines of your own sanity for months?
It sounds like method madness, truly. But it was highly engineered by Leterrier's directing philosophy. He has a punishing commitment to practical filmmaking. He didn't want to rely on green screens or digital exhaustion.
No CGI for the fatigue.
Exactly. In fact, he worked the production design completely backward. Most films shoot the clean house first, then destroy it. Leterrier designed the completely destroyed post-apocalyptic version of the house first. He built that, and then he layered the clean, perfect house on top of it.
Wait, logistically, why would you do it backward? That sounds incredibly difficult.
Because as the film progresses and the house deteriorates, they were literally peeling back the layers of civilization on set. The actors were physically tearing away the comfort of their environment.
That is wild.
Leterrier used real grass, he brought in real growing plants that reacted to the environment, and he used 100% real animals on set.
Which brings us to the most unhinged behind-the-scenes detail. George the squirrel.
Oh, George.
Amidst all this heavy, grueling psychological trauma, Leterrier introduces this wild card. He actually went on record calling George the squirrel the, quote, worst actor he has ever worked with in his entire career.
That is a bold statement from a man who has directed massive blockbusters.
Right. But George earned the title because he was just mean. The squirrel was actively biting the cast during takes.
Oh my God.
I wanted to picture this. You are Wagner Moura. You are starving yourself. You are emotionally wrecked from exploring the darkest corners of a father's failing psyche. You are trying to deliver a nuanced performance of a man losing his mind, and you are actively fending off a violent, biting squirrel.
This raises an important question about the line between acting and reacting. There is a physiological limit to what an actor can simply pretend to do. By throwing biting animals, real physical rain, grueling stunts, and a deteriorating practical set at his leads, Leterrier bypassed traditional acting.
He really did.
He didn't ask his actors to pull from their imagination to portray exhaustion and panic.
He practically weaponized the environment against them.
Precisely. He's induced the panic. When an actor is cold, wet, physically exhausted, and dealing with an unpredictable live animal, the nervous system takes over. The fatigue you are going to see on screen isn't performed. It's genuine.
Yeah, you can't act that.
Leterrier captured raw, unfiltered truth because the actors were quite literally surviving the production. It proves a fascinating point for all of us. You cannot fake genuine exhaustion. When you are forced to adapt to a truly chaotic environment, your raw, authentic self comes out. The mask drops.
Well, the mask definitely dropped, but thankfully both Moura and Leterrier made it out the other side intact. And it's a good thing, because when you look at what they're doing next, the contrast between being trapped in a single house for this movie and their current reality is giving me whiplash.
Oh, they are both incredibly busy.
So busy. Wagner Moura's schedule is moving at lightning speed. According to the interview, he spent the summer touring across Europe with a stage play called A Trial After an Enemy of the People, which is a reimagining of the classic Henrik Ibsen play.
And what's beautiful about that is he gets to travel from country to country, performing in front of live audiences with his family right there with him.
Yeah, it feels like the ultimate psychological antidote to the claustrophobia of the Last House. He went from being sealed in a fake house to roaming the European continent.
It's a massive pendulum swing. And right after the stage tour wraps, he is jumping straight into a film called Oceans. But perhaps the biggest milestone is that he is finally stepping behind the camera to direct a fully financed film of his own, titled Last Night at the Lobster. He looked at Leterrier during the interview and confidently said, "This is gonna be my year."
You love to see it. And Leterrier is clearly having a reaction to the constraints of the Last House as well. I mean, he spent months trapped in one location with a tiny cast of 4 people, and now he is finishing up a massive, sprawling sci-fi epic in New York called Liminal.
The cast for that is insane.
The cast list is absurdly stacked. He's directing Vanessa Kirby, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Tom Pelphrey, Tracy Letts, Paul Sparks, and Franca Potente.
To go from a micro-budget, single-location pressure cooker to a massive ensemble piece in New York City suggests Leterrier is deliberately stretching different creative muscles.
Absolutely.
Plus, he mentioned he's working with a lot of kids again on Liminal. He joked that he just refuses to make things easy on himself.
He really does seem addicted to the challenge. But amidst all these massive upcoming projects and globe-trotting schedules, the most charming takeaway from this interview was their enduring bromance.
Yeah, that was really sweet.
They aren't just Hollywood colleagues who tolerate each other for the press tour. They're already planning their reunion. They're going to meet up in France, drink excellent French wine, and plot their next collaboration. And Leterrier joked that they'd be doing it while reading Variety together.
There is a unique bond forged in the creative trenches. When artists go through that level of physical and emotional taxation together, relying on each other to survive the vision, it either breaks the relationship or cements a lifelong friendship. For Moura and Leterrier, it clearly built something lasting.
It really did. And as we wrap up this deep dive into their minds, their process, and the themes of The Last House, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to chew on. We spend so much of our daily lives trying to curate and control our environments. We build routines, we organize our pantries, we lock our doors to keep the unpredictability of the world at bay.
We all do it.
But imagine if, tonight, the walls of your own home suddenly became the absolute permanent boundaries of your entire world. Which version of yourself would emerge when the illusion of control is stripped away? Would you be the resilient survivor who adapts, who learns to drop the arrogance of the protector and allows others to care for you? Or would your obsession with control turn you into a prisoner of your own making, alienated from the people sitting right next to you in the living room?
It's the ultimate test of who we really are when the outside world stops watching.
Think about that tonight, right after you turn the deadbolt. Until next time.